Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the show. Final segment, and we will wrap it up as we continue our conversation about Major League Baseball. If you watch the World Baseball Classic, which I'm sure you at least heard about, drew huge audiences this year. Obviously, Team USA, team from the Dominican Republic, Japan, Venezuela. So many players that we saw out there competing that we know from, being the best players in Major League Baseball. Now the question is, what happens on the heels of that tournament? Right? One of the big storylines, obviously, here in Detroit, we know Tarek Skubal made one start in the WBC and then came back to spring training. And that caused some ire from some fans that felt like, should he have spent more time in the WBC helping them win a championship? At the end of the day, look, these guys are beholden to their major league teams. You like to play in events like, I say you like it like I know what it is, but, you want to play in events like the Olympics or the World Baseball Classic. But at the end of the day, any time spent away from your actual Major League Baseball team is time spent away from your actual Major League Baseball team. And you're never going to please everybody. So some guys got flack for not being there through the duration of the WBC, not being a full participant. Anyway, that's I guess a story for another day. We'll all have opinions on certain things. I think at the end of the day, everybody wants Tarek and everybody else to be healthy, happy, heading into the 2026 season. And give the Tigers the best chance to win a World Series championship. We talked about, obviously, the work stoppage looming at the end of this season. But again, coming off the WBC, Taryn Fritzsching from Troy Athens High School, she takes a deep dive on some of the players, the notable players from the WBC who are now headed back to MLB. Here's Taryn Fritzsching.
Today, we're talking baseball. So, World Baseball Classic just ended in a heartbreaker. USA lost to Venezuela in the final. So, after that, and after watching them be close in the pool with Italy and Mexico, what does that say for the USA? While it stings, especially after losing to Japan in 2023, the game in the tournament wasn't just about the result. Because if you really look at it, the entire tournament showed us a lot about these players and what they're going to be bringing to their MLB teams very, very soon. And the timing couldn't be better because the MLB season is just getting underway with opening night as the San Francisco Giants take on the New York Yankees. So instead of just breaking down the game, let's talk about what we actually learned because we can't look back and wonder if we were to win that game. As players, the most important game is the next one on the schedule. However, when you look at the numbers from Team USA, the biggest takeaway is pretty clear. The lineup just was not consistent enough. So if we take a look at some of the stats, you had key hitters like Alex Bregman hitting around 143, Bobby Witt Jr. hitting around 250, and Will Smith just over 230. And in a short tournament like this, it's going to hurt you. You can't have multiple guys in your lineup struggling to make consistent contact and expect to win close games, especially because so many of these guys that got called to play for Team USA took time out of their own spring training to represent their country. But it's not just about batting average, it's the way that they were hitting as well. There were flashes of power like Bryce Harper coming through with his big home run in the final against Venezuela, but there wasn't enough base hits to actually build rallies. It felt like the team was constantly waiting for a big swing instead of putting the pressure on defense and stringing together quality at-bats. But when you look on on-base percentage, it tells an even clearer story. A few guys were getting on base constantly, but not nearly enough to keep the entire lineup and the innings alive. That's how you end up with only a couple runs in games like these. But when you take that and apply it to the MLB season, that's where it really gets interesting. So if we go back to Bryce Harper and the Phillies, his numbers shows that he's ready. He's getting on base, he's hitting for power, and he's producing in these big moments. That's exactly what you want from your star player heading into the season. However, when you look at his teammate Kyle Schwarber, who's also obviously on the Phillies, the power is always there. Schwarber has always been a power hitter, but he doesn't hit well when it comes to his average. The lower average and the inconsistent contact that we also saw in this tournament and in past seasons suggest that the same streakiness could carry over heading into the season. So for the Phillies, it's a mix. They've got stars ready to go, but the consistency of the lineup is still and always will be a question. And now heading back to Bobby Witt Jr. with the Royals, his numbers show flashes as well, but not full dominance. And that's what you kind of expect from a young player with elite talent. He's going to make big plays and have big moments, but there will still be some ups and downs, especially early on in the season. And then you look at Captain America himself, Aaron Judge in the Yankees. Aaron Judge is one of the best hitters, if not the best hitter in baseball. And like a lot of Team USA, he also showed flashes of power, but not that consistent production game to game. That's something to watch early in the MLB season because even elite hitters can take time to fully lock in after a high-intensity tournament like this. But it wasn't just the offense. Pitching tells an important story too. You had your pitchers like Clay Holmes, you had Paul Skeens, and you had Logan Webb, who had wins for Team USA. But if you look at the pitching numbers overall, there's really a lot to like. Guys like David Bednar and Clay Holmes were dominant, not allowing a lot of runs and showing they can handle high-pressure situations. That's a great sign for their MLB teams because it shows that their stuff is sharp heading in to the next season. And then you have two of the biggest arms in baseball right now. You have Paul Skeens and the brief moment of what we saw of Tarek Skubal. Paul Skeens showed exactly why there's so much hype around him, just like as he does with the Pittsburgh Pirates. The strikeout numbers jump out, the velocity is there, and hitters clearly have trouble squaring up to him. But you can see that he gave up some runs, some hits, which will happen to every respective pitcher, but that still means that he's working on command and consistency. And that's important because for the Pirates, it means that he is ace-level stuff right now, but whether he dominates every start is going to depend on how sharp he is with control early in the season. And then we have Tarek Skubal with the Tigers. His numbers show a solid outing, but not complete dominance, but it tells you something important that he's reliable. He's not always going to overpower hitters like Paul Skeens, but he's going to limit the damage, throw out strikes, and keep the team in the games. And for Detroit, that is huge because it means that Detroit has a true top-of-the-rotation arm who gives you a chance to win every single time that he's on the mound. So when you compare those two, it kind of represents pitching across the league right now. You've got guys like Paul Skeens with elite overpowering stuff, and guys like Tarek Skubal who rely more on command and consistency. And early in the season, these are the pitchers who can consistently locate and avoid mistakes, and they are usually the ones who succeed first. So when you connect all of this, both hitting and pitching, the message is overall the same. Team USA did not lose because they lacked talent. In fact, all of these teams were made up of the best players in the MLB who can represent their country, but they lost because they lacked consistency both on the plate and on the mound. That's exactly what the beginning of the MLB season looks like because it's always going to be a new team from the team that was prior. Some players are already locked in, and others are still finding their rhythm, and teams are trying to put it all together. So as the season gets underway, don't be surprised if you see teams that look a lot like Team USA did, full of talent, capable of big moments, but not always consistent from inning to inning. Because if this tournament showed us anything, it's this. Talent shows up in moments, but consistency is what actually wins games.
Again, that was Taryn Fritzsching from Troy Athens High School. I want to thank her. I want to thank all of our guests on the show today. Carter Lutz from the University of Miami for talking about the impending work stoppage in Major League Baseball. Alina Levine from the University of Michigan, really talented a young woman who's on the beat covering Michigan football this year for the Michigan Daily. Really good stuff, good insight into what that's like, being in a room where not everybody in there looks and sounds the way you do. But appreciate having Alina on for the first time on the show. And again, our thanks to public address announcer John Mason from the Pistons. Again, you know his voice, and now you get to know a little bit of the backstory about how it all came to be some 25 years ago when he stepped to the mic for the very first time covering Pistons basketball. Hope you learned a little something this week. Again, you heard some of the younger voices, the up-and-comers in the industry that are hoping to make a name for themselves. Well, they're doing it right now, to be honest with you, but hoping to work in the world of sports as professionals in the very near future. As always, I'm your host, Johnny Kane, here on Open Mic, and we will see you again next Wednesday at 8 o'clock here on WJR. Until then, Godspeed.